So today we're talking about the future of marketing and how entrepreneurs can stay grounded with Aric Berquist. Aric is the Senior Vice President of Partnerships and Revenue at the Ardent Group. It's an advertising technology platform that is essentially a very real competitor to Google Ads. I'm your host, Clay Vaughn, and I'm best known as the CEO of Reverent, a full-service agency that focuses on helping you market your business and share your story. If you're tired of letting your cold, warm, and hot opportunities fall through the cracks, then I think you should take a listen to this quick message from our new sponsor, Rocket Fuel.
When small businesses let their leads slip through the cracks, their top-line revenue suffers. Over the years, Rocket Fuel's all-in-one CRM software has helped thousands of small business owners organize and automate their communications so that nothing slips through the cracks and their top-line capacity can grow. So, schedule a demo today at www.rocketfuel.software. You can stop losing leads and instead close more sales with half the effort.
Welcome back, everybody, to Good Business. I have a very special guest, Aric Berquist, on to our show today. And I brought Aric on. Honestly, I'm grateful that he took the time to jump on because he is everywhere. I mean, this man is always on the move. And I'm excited to let you get a glimpse of what I've had the pleasure and blessing of being able to get a glimpse of over the past few years working together. And so with that being said, Aric, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, no, pleasure to be here. And I look forward to this. So thank you for having me, Clay.
Awesome. So Aric, let's dive right on in. I'd love to know who you are. Why do you feel like you're on this podcast today? What's your story and how we'll just go from there.
Sure. Well, I'll give you, I guess, the most basic information. And then maybe that kind of leads up a little bit to, some of the things we want to discuss maybe on more of the business side. But, I'm happily married for 25 years now, which is crazy to think about how long that is.
Awesome.
To my wife, Gretchen. We always laugh, like my name and her name together. It sounds like, we should have like wooden shoes and be living in the Alps. But we don't. We live in Florida, which I love. And we've got 4 children, which, they have just been such a blessing to us. And it's been a remarkable journey with them. And I think actually even mentioning the 4 kids, I can kind of slide into a little bit about our story. I'll give you like a very abridged version, just to not go into too many details. But, when we first got married, I got out of graduate school and we just had some tough career and financial struggles we were walking through. So we were dealing with that and dealing with, my parents getting divorced and then dealing with Gretchen's father tragically passing away, which is a big deal on so many fronts. And then ultimately, we were kind of starting to come out of a lot of that. When we were pregnant with our 4th child, we found out that he was going to have Down syndrome. Mm. And that was actually very scary, as you can imagine. I can literally recall the moment. I was driving home. I used to work a lot in Atlanta, even though we lived in Florida. And so I was driving home from that and coming across this bridge, and it's an awesome bridge, just beautiful views. I vividly remember this moment. And my wife Gretchen called and said that she just spoke with the doctor, and we found out we were going to have a children with Down syndrome. And I vividly remember, I won't say the word, but I remember literally letting out a cuss word as I was driving over the bridge because I just was kind of one of those what else moments. And I never know how to say this. Like I heard or felt, but like this voice basically say, who are you to tell me what a blessing is? And it was one of the most unreal experiences I've ever had. I mean, my arm hairs literally stood on end to the point where it hurt. I didn't pull over, but I felt like I should. But I drove home. And so needless to say, we still proceeded through Gretchen's pregnancy. And, there was anxiety, 'cause I knew how to raise kids. Like we'd already raised 3. And I absolutely love and adore my kids. I honestly frequently am taken back by who each of them are individually. I just feel like they're honestly like better humans than I am, but at such an early age. But anyway, this pregnancy and, it was nerve-wracking. The future narrative about having a child with special needs was really scary to me because it was all unknowns. And as I look back, I just feel like that part of my life taught me a lot. I mean, it taught me a lot about the danger of trying to peer into tomorrow, what happens when you do that. Because, as I look back and think through that, when you do that and you peer ahead, you're almost entirely creating fake narratives. And, the more we dwell on those and engage with those, the more powerful and the more scary they get. As you can imagine, like researching Down syndrome and all the things that can go wrong and that sort of thing, it was just not good. It was terrifying. And so this was a great lesson for me in being present. And in this case, God was literally about to hand me and my family the gift of a lifetime. So I'm really thankful for that phase, as scary as it was. And now I feel like I'm kind of getting to walk through like all of the treasure that my fourth son, Asher, really is. And gosh, the numerous lessons that have come along with that.
Wow. Talk about some adversity. So tell me a little bit about what that has done for you as an individual. I mean, obviously that's a life-changing experience and it continues to be, right? What has that done for you in regard to just how you view the world and how you view things like work, how you view things like community and church and all of the above?
Well, that's a great question. I think, as I think through that, I feel like the biggest thing I have taken away from that, and it's obviously, I mean, listen, there's so much noise in this world and so much happening, good and bad, to distract you and pull you away. But the biggest thing I feel like I learned out of the pregnancy, before Asher came, and then even through his first, handful of years, was just how essential it is to be present, present literally as yourself in the very moment where your feet are standing on the ground, and where you're passing through. And like, because I feel like I've learned like that is life. Like that's where the treasure is. And that's where you're going to make an impact. And that's where an impact is made on you if you kind of allow that to happen. And of course, I've seen, both ways, that in some moments you're literally pulling treasure out and it's reaped right there. But sometimes in that moment you're sowing seeds and the treasure's harvested later. But it's really shown me that everything is used. And I think that season of life showed me that everything can grow into something with color and something that's vibrant and life-giving. And so with that notion, I feel like now it helps remind me today, like in this current moment, like, just everything is absolutely mission critical to tomorrow. And I think that's maybe one of my biggest takeaways is there's no tomorrow without getting through today. And I just feel like there were many times in life where I let fear, or I let my mind that's, trying to peer into the future with all the what ifs, I let that pull me out of like the beauty of what's happening now, going down all the what if paths and that sort of thing, which is so easy to do, when you're trying to look ahead to see how you're going to be doing financially, or if you're like staring or coveting at what others have, even though you don't see the whole story. So I guess if I were to net it out, I feel like I've been learning, and not to go off into a biology realm here, but the more I read, I feel like we are basically a 120 trillion cells. That is a crazy number. And God like literally knit me together perfectly. He knit you together perfully. And it's to make an impact on the world where like that we're currently in contact with right now. So that's kind of my new mantra. And it's a daily struggle. But I really feel like the rewards are wonderful. And I just feel like it's been a wonderful lesson to step through and try to continue to basically grow into every day.
Wow. Did you get a copy of my prayer journal today? I mean, seriously, Aric, that's so encouraging. And I mean, I'm just like, to your point earlier, hair standing on the back of my neck right now. I'm like, all right, Aric was put in my path for this moment right now, today, to say that. So thank you for just being a voice of the Lord through that. So to kind of put that into practical terms, I mean, I struggle with that. I mean, obviously. And I struggle with it because I'm a visionary. I'm always thinking about, not even tomorrow, I'm thinking about 10 years from now. I'm like, all right, I've got to get there. I've got to get there. And then tomorrow I'll be thinking 10 years from tomorrow. And I very rarely take the time to just sit and rest in where I am and where God has me. And so I really appreciate that encouragement. So just to kind of segue with that mindset, I'd love it if you could tell me a little bit about your journey in work. And honestly, I'd love to see how that paralleled with this kind of worldview shift that you've experienced over the past, decade or more?
Yes, no, sure. No, absolutely. Well, I probably, like a lot of people, I feel like I had a very circuitous route to, my career and like what I'm doing now. And it's kind of fun to step back and look at the dots now just to see how they connect. But if I go way back, and I think it's important to, for me, like when I got out of graduate school, I was recently married, I was stressed, I was desperately trying to find a job, like most people, and I've always been a kind of an entrepreneurial kind of spirit type guy. That's what I love to do. I like you, like I visionary and I love strategizing. So those are definitely things that I enjoy and probably am best at. But I also, when you get out of graduate school, I was fully recognizing that, hey, at this point I had no real world experience to offer, if I'm being honest, and I just kind of needed a chance to prove myself. But I'll never forget, I was in this interview and the guy looked at me. This is right in the middle of the interview. And he said, Aric, he's like, you are going to back into what you love to do in a career. And I remember sitting there looking at him, and here I am trying to figure out my life and pay bills. And I'm being told I'm going to back into what I love. And I remember like looking at him in his suit. I remember literally holding back tears thinking, this does not answer my needs for today. And I remember thinking it's very apparent I am not getting this job. Like this is not so yeah. I remember, coming away from that interview feeling very small. But then, you fast forward a few years and I was sitting on a plane. It was actually coming back from the funeral of Gretchen's father. And I guess before I mention this, it would make a little sense. Like part of what I do a lot of like songwriting and singing. I'm a musician. So it's always been kind of a side thing. But so I was sitting on this plane. This was trying to do the math. It's probably 2006. Okay. And I just had this idea hit me. I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a live, fully active, interactive music platform, where musicians could perform live for all their fans and all the fans could interact, during the show. So I remember on this plane, I started writing on napkins and like ripping off like parts of magazines where there was enough white where I could write notes. And I just started to put together the like beginning plans of this business plan and started building a team of advisors around me when I got back. And we started raising money for this company that was ultimately Synchronicity Live. We call it Sync Live. And that launched my career in digital music and the digital media space. And it was such a fun and dynamic project. And it's funny. It started built for independent artists and independent labels, but it quickly got a lot of traction with the major labels and major artists just because of basically because of where that whole music industry was at the time. So long story short, I'll just keep fast forwarding. There was a company in Atlanta. So we were having to re-architecture because, at this point, the pipes were pretty small. I mean, to date this is when MySpace was big. Wow. And this was when YouTube was just getting up and going. It wasn't too much after. There's a famous video of the two YouTube partners like filming themselves saying they should shut it down. I don't remember that video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but so this was back a while. So anyway, so we were re-architecturing our site, and there's this company in Atlanta, and they were starting to build an ecosystem of newspaper websites. So they were basically taking network video like Fox Sports or CBS News, and they were putting it into online newspapers and selling advertising into it. So these newspapers would make money. The content provider, such as like a Fox Sports, would make money, and then the company would, doing all the brokering and bringing the ecosystem together, they were making money. So they were going to stream Bon Jovi live into all these newspapers. And at that time, I think they had like 500 or give or take wow. 20. So our companies kind of converged and we executed this live event. It was a blast. And part of the deal was me staying on after to help them with biz dev and kind of grow this ecosystem and this company out. And it was an incredible experience. And gosh, we grew this thing out to like 5,200 publishers when I left, which basically included every newspaper in the US and, thousands of content providers, everyone from like Tribune Broadcasting to Major League Baseball and entertainment outlets. So it was quite an operation. And it kind of led me to what my job is today at Ardent, which is kind of a mix of working with publishers and content creators to monetize their websites and their content. And then, to help distribute that content across all the digital environments. So whether that's, web or apps or OTT or CTV. And then we also work with brands to help them find and market, to their very specific audiences. So, these jobs didn't even exist after graduate school. And so it's kind of interesting for me because I look back and those dang words come back and they were right, but I backed into what I'm doing today and I love it. But I just think it's funny. At the time I wanted to cry and now it's like proven to be an amazing blessing and he couldn't have been more right.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So can you tell me a little bit more about what it is that you do now? You mentioned briefly Ardent. What is it that you're up to leveraging all of this knowledge, all of this experience over the past almost 2 decades?
Sure. So we really kind of built this platform. We saw a need that publishers were having a hard time monetizing their websites. And so we've got access to a lot of different advertising partners, whether it's direct advertising, partners and companies that are wanting to reach a certain audience, or there are a lot of marketplaces out there that basically bid on websites. So we just help connect the websites to the pipes, so to speak, for a lack of better terminology. So that's one part. And then another part, there's really three parts. So then the second part really is, a lot of these content creators who run the websites, they have videos or they have other content that they want others to see. So outside of kind of the walls of their website, so to speak, we just make sure they have opportunities to get those out on all the platforms where other people are congregating where it makes sense, but also to get that into other distribution networks so their content can be seen by others. So those are like the two pieces. And then the final piece is for our brand partners that come in. We kind of two things. We can work directly with all the publishers that we manage, but we also have an ad seat that we utilize that really helps us target very specific demographics or behaviors or user types that really line up well with that particular brand or advertiser. So those are kind of the three main things we do at the Ardent Group.
That's awesome. So for the layman person out there who may have very little experience in marketing or is just like, wait, what? Can you kind of compare Ardent to a household term like Google? Where would Ardent fit in Google? Is Ardent a competitor of Google?
That's a great question. I would say Ardent's almost like so if you picture Google as maybe Walmart, like we're maybe the boutique, if that makes sense. So we're smaller. We do a lot of the same things. In many regards, there's things we can do a little more strategic and niche. Just because our ad seat, for example, just one of the components, we're tied into about, I think it's like 320 databases. So we can do a lot of very intense fine tuning for brands to find their audiences.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So essentially, you have the ability to do even more precise targeting than what you would do through Google on the advertising front. And you're also not limited by like woke culture either. I mean, with Google and Facebook, I mean, they limit you dramatically on how you can target. I mean, they restrict you for running ads for, I don't know, gun manufacturers and what have you. And Ardent, you're not running into all of those walls that you would normally run into with the big box stores, using your Walmart analogy, right?
Yes, no, we definitely see a lot of that. And we've really worked through a lot of different mechanisms to have responses for that. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I love this job. Not for that specifically, but just because there's always change and things are always evolving. And there's just so many opportunities to look at things strategically and find new ways and better ways, especially when walls are put up. Because it may just be my personality, but I really feel like my personality when there's a wall is to find a way around it or kick through it or whatever you need to do. But to answer that, we have a lot of mechanisms that help you get around otherwise difficult subject matter that's hard to market. I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and also we're not just dealing with the situation of Google restricting you, but I mean, you're also dealing with the situation of certain even publishers restricting you too. And using this algorithm, you're able to get behind those restrictions in some respects, right?
Yes. No, there's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
And I just think for the years and years of partnership and friendships in this business, there's just always a way. There's always a way to help brands find their audience. And there's always a way to help publishers grow and monetize. But it is changing a lot. I mean, it definitely is an interesting time.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there's a huge niche that Ardent is filling. And for all of you guys listening, you may be like, okay, why is this relevant to me? The reason why it's relevant to you is because business should be capitalistic, right? It shouldn't be this socialist movement. It should be capitalism. Hey, may the best man win, right? But in reality, you've got the government stepping in. You've got these massive trillion-dollar corporations coming in and controlling the markets. And then you have groups like Ardent that can find its way to navigate through all of that, where the normal average Joe wouldn't be able to, because you may only have access to run ads on Google or on Meta or elsewhere. So pretty incredible platform that Ardent brings. So just kind of bringing it back down to earth for us. One of the major lessons that I've learned over the past decade and a half of doing business is you can't grow anything on your own. And I mean, if I try, I fail, typically. And so a lot of my success, and any mentor, anyone that I've talked to said a lot of their success is geared to who you surround yourself with. And Aric, you are probably one of the best networkers I've ever met. I mean, you're friends with everybody. You don't know a stranger, and that's typically not my character. I'm more reserved. I'm more of a kind of a uh, I don't like the limelight. I don't like anything along those lines. And so I'd love to hear from you how maybe if you've had a mentor that stepped in that's guided you through that, or what you've learned over the years as you've gotten the chance to work with Laura Ingraham at LifeSet. You've had the chance to work with a variety of really cool people through Ardent, and not even talking about your sync stuff. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, what has all of that done for your own personal growth?
Well, gosh, and I've heard you say this before, and it's so true. Like, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just so true. So I kind of have two answers to this. The first is when I first started Sync Live, and that's a good place to start. I have a mentor he's basically my business bedrock and life coach. And hilariously, I don't think I've ever called him that, but that's what he is. I mean, I don't think he would even know I call him that. But when I first started Sync Live and in digital media, I lived in a tiny beach town in Florida, which is not really a hotbed for digital media, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But what I did have was this chairman of the board for Sync Live. His name is Bruce Bagney. I have to call him out because he is truly the man in business I just admire the most. I mean, he's literally brilliant, like off the charts brilliant, but he's so humble. He's so winsome, and he's unbelievably successful. I mean, he had a wonderful, successful career as general counsel for one of the biggest companies in the US. But more than that, like, he's just genuine. I mean, he's honest to the core. Mm-hmm. And I've watched him deal with about every crazy scenario you can imagine, especially as we work through that startup together. And I've walked through craziness with him, but he always did so with dignity, and he always did so with a backbone. And he did the right thing. Like, however painful it was going to be, he just always did. And he looked out for the little guy, and he just showed me what it looked like to be a leader and to be human in the world. And, this world is not always friendly, as we know, and we know it's not fair. Like, those are two things we know, but yeah. I'm just forever grateful to be close to him to this day. And I will tell you, it doesn't hurt that this guy is extremely fun to be around. So that's wonderful too. So that's kind of the first part. And then, as it relates to, mentors and other people in this space, I guess another piece of this, I really make a point to stay close to people I revere in this space and stay close to people in general, because I think I enjoy being around people, but B, and like I was saying earlier, like the whole, we don't know what we don't know. I just want to stay in touch with people, because even if we don't have current business to discuss, like, for example, when I'm in New York for other meetings, I like to still get together and meet with people or haven't seen in a while, because you don't know what's on the horizon. You don't know, and you can't, because there's so many components to everything. So I feel like I've been blessed to have several people in prominent roles at varying companies that, like, kind of different niches of the digital world. And that's been a huge help to me, because I mean, I feel like the more you learn, the more you know you don't know. And the more you know you need people and relationships and others around you, because you can't do it on your own. Like, you just absolutely can't do it and be successful, I don't think.
I love that. And for folks who may be a little bit more reserved, may not be that extrovert, more of an introvert, just as an encouragement, if you're going to be in business, you can't be an introvert. You've got to learn how to step outside and build relationships. Otherwise, there's no way you can grow. I mean, that business, whether it's B2B or B2C, it's all built on relationships. You're doing business with people, not business with business, no matter who you're selling to. So I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that, Aric. And I'll attest, whenever we were in New York together, I swear you practically knew everybody there, which was nuts. So it was pretty cool. So just with all of that in mind, I mean, you've got so many opportunities to network, to connect with people. How have you seen all of those wins and losses and these relationships that you've built? How have you seen that affect your position, your perspective of what it looks like to be a Christian leader, or a Christian in business and a Christian business leader? Because that's kind of what you are. So how have you seen that play out?
Gosh, that's a good question. I feel like I've been blessed, because just think on the business side for a second. I've been on pretty much all sides of the digital space. I've been the publisher side, I've been on the content side, the brand side, the user side, like the left and the right politics and indifferent, although I don't know that anyone's indifferent anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be.
No, yeah, but there's a lot of noise. But I would say I feel like through all of that, I've kind of learned to just try and be human in everything. And I think what's really helped, and whether that's whatever your role is, if you're in real estate, you're a teacher, a doctor, a filmmaker, whatever, it's just to really focus on communication and relationships. And develop the relationships, like to foster win-wins when you're negotiating with people and against people in your business dealings. And obviously, like when I say a win-win, that sounds like 50-50. It's not, it's obviously really 50-50. But I feel like I learned the hard way, but I learned that, when you're negotiating, you're working with people, it's essential to communicate and to foster a relationship. So you kind of understand their needs and where they're coming from really. And I think just to make sure that everyone has something to take back to their camp as a win, like everyone needs a token, whatever that is. And so I just feel like with that, it's kind of shown me that it's important to have that mentality when you step into your day, because you don't know who you're going to be working with. Especially, I've noticed this in the digital space. I mean, who you work with at company X is at company Y, 2 months later. And they may be for or against you. So you just don't know where that's going to be. So I think it doesn't behoove us ever to try and hit the red button to, annihilate competitors or take every dollar off the table, because we're eventually left with a very small corner and very, very few partner opportunities if we do that. So I feel like with what I've seen and walked through and all the different sides and things going on, I've just tried to really, continue to learn to make sure when you're doing business deals that everyone walks away, and it's going to be different every time. And it's not always obviously the same caliber. Someone always feels maybe they want a little bit more, but that if someone can take something back to their company and feel good about it.
Yeah, no, that's a really powerful approach to take, because most of the time people are like, how can I get the most from me? And you kind of leave a wake of disaster behind you. So I love that approach. And I mean, for the sake of the gospel, I mean, as believers, we want to not have that reputation of just taking advantage of people. And unfortunately, in many cases, Christians who maybe live in grace a little bit too much might actually have that reputation. And so it's good to be able to set that example in a different, and obviously you have to be careful about where you bring that up for so many different reasons, but it's a fantastic mindset to have and to leave that good value behind. So just to kind of pivot a little bit as we get to the conclusion of our conversation, I love thinking about the future. And I know you started out this podcast by saying, no, we need to think about the present, the moments. But I love thinking about the future. And I mean, I think back to when video, I mean, to your credit, when video was first starting to become this prospect of maybe video might be a relevant component of the internet. And I remember even when I was getting started, talking to my clients and saying, hey guys, video is going to dominate. You've got to get ahead of it. And I'll tell you this, the people that decided to take up on that advice of getting a good video footprint online, I mean, they're killing it now. And the ones who are like, video is it's a fad. I mean, we'll stick to TV. We'll stick to cable. I mean, they're all like, wait, what just happened? So the media industry and the tech industry has changed so much over the past 2 decades. And I'd love to hear from you how you see that changing in the years to come. I mean, we worked with the guys over at Data Blocks for a project a year or so ago, and Data Blocks, they're very much focused on, all right, let's shape the way the world views advertising in the years to come. But when we're thinking about just how in some cases sinister some of the folks are in regard to cutting out certain messages, cutting out certain ideologies, for good, for better, for worse, that is obviously the fear, is that we're going to kind of get into this this end of the world mindset 20 years from now, which I'm like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. But I haven't really heard too many people talk about what the positives are of the technology components of where the industry is headed in the years to come, and maybe how we can all be navigating that. I mean, we have this metaverse, which I mean, I'm starting to feel like an old person. Whenever I'm like, wait, no, what? The meta what? I'm just kidding. But the whole point is like, there's all of these new endeavors in the tech industry, new ideas, new concepts that are being adopted. Some are not being adopted. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yes, I kind of have a couple of thoughts. My first one's, I think, non-tech, I would say. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
But I think it helps ground, and I think it also helps you do what you need to do inside of today to continue to bolster like who you are and your company's footprint and the culture and what's inside of that. And it kind of goes back to what I started with. So I'll mention this, and then I have a tech thought too. But my one thought on the tactics and strategies, especially in the digital space, is, oh my goodness, like this space moves so fast. It is crazy. So if I got too specific there, this particular podcast would be like collecting dust in a few months.
If not a few days.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're all going to succeed at varying levels and we're all going to fall. But I would say, I feel like I have a really short funnel I've been using for the last, I don't know, year or so. And it's been super, super helpful. And it's basically this, and you'll see how it kind of bridged from earlier in our talk, but it's presence, and then occupy your space, and then make beautiful things. It's those three things. And this has proven to me like it's the simplest funnel for me, basically, to answer the question of, well, what do I do now? Like, what do I do today inside of this moment? It kind of draws me back to connecting the present, to kind of like you were talking, like you've got to have a future vision too. You've got to connect those. Yeah. And so when I say presence, I just mean like being physically, emotionally, and spiritually in the very moment where you're standing, as yourself, and offer yourself for that moment. Like today, like I was saying earlier, is literally mission critical to anything that's going to happen to tomorrow or a year from now. And then the occupy your space, that's basically like each of us, like we're basically a formation of more than 100 trillion cells, a crazy number, not comprehensible to me, but like you're perfectly created as designed and with unique purpose. So with that, like we need to fill our space like you were designed to do. And I tell my kids all the time, like draw an imaginary circle around yourself and use that area. Basically, that's your space to bless others, to make an impact in the space, like physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And don't cede your ground to anybody. Don't ever give your land away. And then, the make beautiful things part is kind of just what it sounds like. So just, in the moment where you're standing, whatever space you're occupying, like this could literally be cleaning your desk, a project at work, physical workout, playing an instrument, a relationship, but like whoever's standing right in front of you. But, to have the intent of making beautiful things. And, obviously with that, making beautiful things takes work, an effort, and being intentional with who you are and where you want to go. So if I pivot that back to business, those three things, the presence and occupy your space and make beautiful things, I would say like as a business leader, if you've got basically an ability to be present and occupy your space and make beautiful things, but then more than that, you empower the people around you to do that. I mean, you're going to have an organization with people around you that are going to give you honest feedback, and you're going to have access to their talents and to their hearts. And that's just going to lead to better decisions and better products and services, because everyone's going to have input from their view as they're reaching out. Kind of like we were talking earlier, like you don't know what you don't know, but if you're surrounded with people that have the same intent as you and are looking out, and you can all honestly discuss things, that's amazing. And then if you have people that are fully engaged and occupying their space, you're going to have vigor and energy. And then, more than that, if you have people all driven to make beautiful things, whether that's in what you're making in work or their family lives or themselves, you're going to have an amazing outcome with that. I just think that's going to create incredible things for your business. So that's a short funnel that I've started to adapt that really helps me stand where I am as myself, and use that being present to look out also to the future in terms of what I'm making and why I'm making it. So that's been really helpful. And then to jump back to the like very business part of your question, specifically as it relates to my industry, and like when you're using the video example and the tech example, I think the biggest thing we're going to have to do now is I look at the landscape of things. Because we used to have, used to be, MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and then Instagram, and, TikTok. I mean, there's just so many platforms now. Now there's Rumble, because some people can't play on Facebook anymore. I mean, there's so many platforms, and they're constantly spinning off into other platforms. And so I think it's going to be more important than ever to know where your audiences are. and to find ways and mechanisms to take your content, to take your brands and products, whatever that would be, and place them right in front of that audience where they are. And so it's going to be really important to basically know where these people are, to stay up and in tune with which platforms are working and kind of what their mantra is there. So you can continue to have direct access, because the more of that you have, the better.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, that's all just like a lot to process. I mean, when I'm thinking, all right, well, how do we actually tangibly do that? And I would just encourage anybody who's listening and you're like, okay, well, now what? When we're thinking about how to understand who your audience is, most marketing agencies, most groups will say the first thing you should do is just figure out, well, what are your competitors doing? And I mean, that's true. It's not a bad idea to figure out what your competition is doing. There's a book I'm in the process of reading called Blue Ocean Strategy, which I highly recommend to anybody out there who's wanting to figure out, how do I not only do what I've been doing well, but how do I carve out a new niche? How do I make sure that I'm sailing on blue oceans versus in the midst of this shark infested waters where I am now? And so when you're thinking about how to identify who your customer is, you want to think, okay, what is it that they want? What is it that the person that's buying things from me now, what is it that they're looking for? So you're not actually trying to pinpoint a specific human being. You're trying to pinpoint a specific problem that is in need of being solved, because it may be a 30-year-old in West Alabama and a 50-year-old in Southern California, all needing to have the same problem solved. So when you're trying to strategize, we recommend that you you just try to identify what it is that they want and the problem that's standing in the way of them getting it. If you can clearly identify both of those things, you're going to start to carve out what your target market is and be where they are, as Aric was sharing. So I love that. So, and by the way, Blue Ocean Strategy, it's been literally life-changing for me. If you haven't had a chance to read it, Aric, I think you would get a kick out of it.
I was just writing that down.
Yeah. So speaking of books, I'd love to know, are there any books that you recommend? I mean, you're on the cutting edge of technology right now. You're really in the thick of it in New York and DC, working with so many different publishers. Tell me what you are consuming to make you a better person, and what you would recommend everybody else do the same.
Gosh. Well, one of the books, it's not very specific to my industry per se, was one you actually recommended. And I would say The Story Brand. I mean, that.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I love
that for me. And yeah, I really can't even talk to you about it, because you know it in and out more than anybody. But I want to thank you for that, because that book really helped me reframe marketing and client needs. Because, as people, like, we want to fix issues. I feel like so often I would just rush in to fix things, but there's a bigger narrative. Like, we go in and attack a symptom, but we don't really know necessarily what, or, we may be missing the bigger picture. And I feel like that book just really helped kind of create a mechanism for figuring out the story, the who and the why, and all the interwoven personalities and emotions that are embedded inside of an issue. So that was amazing. I feel like I'm constantly reading different books. Many of them are not, I would say, tech related per se, because I honestly feel like most of the tech information I get is directly from people. That's why I feel like it's so important to be talking.
Well, yeah, and to your point, that tech information becomes irrelevant in about 3.5 months. So yeah, theories definitely where to focus a lot of that on. And if you don't have a book that you specifically recommend, I mean, is there someone that you're like, you need to pay attention to what they're saying, to your point there?
That's actually a great question. I feel like that comes down to, for example, to the person in their industry and what they're specifically doing. Whether you're in real estate, like you're saying, but like for me and my roles, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I just really try to be in communication with people all the time. Different leaders of different companies, people that are, thought leaders in various aspects of what we do. And mostly because I enjoy talking to them, and it's just fun staying connected and hearing what they're up to and finding ways to get to connect on things. But it's really been fascinating to me. If you think about the digital space, I mean, the whole premise behind a lot of digital space is to remove the humans. There's a lot of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of, machine learning and algorithms after algorithms.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting that it just really comes down to relationships. And I would encourage people inside of whatever your business is to make sure you're in contact with people that either do similar things to you or are providing services that in some way connect with you, or just, have different platforms that are somehow related to some of the different things that you need to be able to do, because you've got to have teams around you of people that are inside your company and outside of your company. Because like I was saying before, you're going to work with and for and against different people, and the teams are constantly changing. So I think more than anything, whatever your industry is, I think you've got to be versed enough through reading more of like the daily publications and things going on there of what makes sense for you. Like, what are the important people and things happening where I have got to stay ahead of, or at least on the pulse of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to be a one-hit wonder. You want to make sure that you're not just leveraging one success you had years ago. You want to leverage consistent growth, consistent knowledge, and consistent application of that knowledge, for sure.
Yes.
I love that.
Well,
I love that.
And I think one thing that's interesting, because we've all felt this call, right? Like, we all have people in our lives where when the phone rings, they need something, and it just feels different. it just really does. Whereas opposed to, if you just take the time and it's just a little bit every day of reaching out to people, you're going to have a network of people that care about you and you care about them. And when you take care of each other and they take care of you, that gives a pulse to work. It really does to me. Like, if it was just about, revenue and page views and content views, I think like my soul would die off on that.
For sure.
But when you start to mix in these relationships, truly, you really do start making beautiful things. You just do. You find a way, and you find, what's making other people tick, and you're creating things that you maybe never thought you would be creating just through conversations, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier of, not knowing what you don't even know. So to me, it's really about truly playing a role in people's lives, not just reaching out when you need something, or not doing it just as a, kind of a manipulative thing, but truly engaging with people.
I love it. So speaking of engaging with people, how can people engage with you, Aric? Obviously you've talked about the Ardent Group. How can they engage with you on that? Why would they engage with you on that? And if they just want to have a cup of coffee and a Zoom call with you, how would that happen?
Oh, well, I'm always up for coffee. I would do that anytime. My email is probably the easiest. Finding me on LinkedIn's easy. I tell you what makes it very easy. I think I may be wrong, but I think I'm the only Aric Berquist with an A in the whole world. So
there you go.
That's good. That's good and bad. So it's Aric and then Berquist. So if you can find me on LinkedIn, Aric Berquist at Gmail, you can find me, but you can also do Aric at the Ardent.group. But I love meeting new people, and I love figuring out new issues to solve or new things to embark on. So would love to talk to people about any of the things they're looking at doing.
Love it. Yeah. And if you do have any interest in taking advantage of what the Ardent Group has kind of carved out of their niche, you can go to www.theardent.group. We'll have a link in the description below, and you can check it out. There is a whole lot of opportunity if you run a business and maybe you're tired of giving your money to woke corporations, or maybe you're just running into this question of, hey, am I being taken advantage of right now? With the Ardent Group, you know that Aric's got your back, and he's going to ensure that you guys are set up for the best success possible. So with that being said, Aric, it has been such a pleasure. I've been impacted greatly by this conversation, and I have no doubt that our audience has as well. So thanks so much for tuning in today.
Enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, everybody, we'll see you guys next week on Good Business. If you like this podcast, then please consider subscribing now and share it with your friends, family, and any other business leaders who you believe would find value in the topics we discuss. You can learn more about each guest, any of the resources that we discuss, at my website, www.clayvaughn.com. I also want to give a shout out to Rocket Fuel, our show sponsor. Rocket Fuel is an amazing CRM that has allowed my companies to grow exponentially. In fact, one of my companies went from converting 30% of its leads to converting 80% of its leads without seeing a reduction in lead volume. So I highly recommend you check out Rocket Fuel. And we'll see you next week on Good Business.